In this video, I want to talk about Airbnb versus assisted living, and I'm going to discuss both businesses and both business models and kind of give you guys my insight on both of them since I'm doing both Airbnb and assisted living. So if you guys are interested, make sure to stick around. What's up, everyone? I hope you guys are all doing well. If you're new here, my name is Serge. Welcome to the channel. To all my reoccurring viewers, guys, thank you so much for all the love and support. And if you guys haven't yet, and if you're new, go ahead and go join the Facebook group that I've created called Legion Assisted Living Academy. One last thing that I want to mention before we actually continue with the video is that the program will be releasing at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Thursday, August 22nd, 2019. And guys, if you haven't yet, I will be giving a discount to everybody who actually signed up with their email. I will leave a link down below. And the only way you guys will actually have access to that discount code is if you actually left an email, because I will be emailing everybody the discount code. So if you guys haven't yet, make sure that you guys actually put your email in the link down below. And so without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and jump into the topic of this video. Now let's go ahead and start with Airbnb. And the first thing I want to say about Airbnb, whereas it's different from assisted living, is that you're constantly having different guests coming in, couple nights here and there, but throughout the month you're constantly having different people coming in, and so you have to kind of make sure that they're satisfied, that they leave you reviews, and you kind of have to stay on top of that. Whereas with the assisted living aspect, you're not really dealing with that. You're not really dealing with the turnover of the amount of people that you have to deal with. What you're more dealing with on the assisted living level is, if you have a vacancy, you do have to fill that bed pretty quickly, because if not, you will be losing money. So you try to get that bed filled as quick as possible, and that could take a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, give or take. And so therefore you're not really having to deal. But once you do get those residents in, you get your beds filled, it's pretty hands-off for the most part when it comes to having to satisfy your residents, etc., and getting those beds filled. Whereas with Airbnb, you're constantly have to make sure that you're adjusting your prices to get booked, and you're making sure that you're looking at other listings in your area to make sure that you're not overcharging or undercutting them too much and losing money. So you do have to stay on top of that, whereas with your assisted living, you're not really having to do that with the prices. You kind of set a price, that's what it is, and then when you admit a new resident, that's the the price that you will be charging every single month. So the nice thing about that is that with assisted living, you're having more stabilization on the income, whereas Airbnb, you will not have that kind of stabilization. You're kind of depends on how many nights you get booked, right? Some months you may not get booked at all. Some months you're completely booked, but then also some months you're charging a lot more, and some months you're not. So the stabilization of the amount of income that you make from Airbnb can vary. Another thing is, guys, with the assisted living and the Airbnb on the hands-off aspect, they're both pretty hands-off for the most part. You can automate a lot of the things on Airbnb, whereas you have to pay more attention to the assisted living, and it won't be completely hands-off. And so whether in hands-off, you won't ever really be hands-off with either business, because with Airbnb, if you do automate everything and you do hire cleaners, you do have to stay in contact with the cleaners. You do have to make sure that if you do hire somebody to manage your listing, you do have to stay in contact with them. So you won't be completely 100% hands-off with Airbnb. And with the assisted living, depending on who you hire, like if you hire a manager for your home and everything, and you have caregivers and the manager manages the caregivers, you're going to have to manage the manager, right? Same concept. You're going to probably be about, I would say, like 80% hands-off if you go that route. And the same with Airbnb. If you automate everything, you'll probably be 80% hands-off. It depends on who you hire. So guys, it could vary with the hands-off aspect of both businesses. If you want to be pretty involved in both businesses, which I am, with Airbnb, sometimes I do the cleaning. I do manage the listing myself. I don't have anybody else managing it. So therefore, I'm doing pretty much all the work. And the same with the assisted living. I'm the manager there. I do all the administrative stuff. And then occasionally with Airbnb, I will have a cleaner if I'm like out of town or whatever the case may be, but I still manage it even when I'm out of town, and that could be done all from my phone. The same with the assisted living. If I'm out of town, my caregivers become designees at that point. Therefore, they can take the role of the manager, and then I just make sure that they take care of everything and make sure that everything is running smoothly. So for the most part, I'm pretty much hands off, other than when I'm in town. I actually take on back the role of being the manager, and then I also take the role on of being the cleaner. But for the most part, I love being involved in my business because I know what's going on, and it's good to stay on top of things when you're more involved, unless you hire someone to take on that role. But I'm saving a lot more on payroll with being the manager, and then also I get to keep a lot more of the cleaning fees with me cleaning the property, and the property isn't that hard to clean. So therefore, with both of them, I would say that it can vary. I enjoy doing both of them, and honestly, the one thing that I've learned is that as long as they're both making money and they're bringing money in, it's about generating income regardless of how it goes. The same with YouTube and everything else. YouTube, I make these videos, and that's a whole nother topic. But regardless, it's just about generating income and reinvesting back into the businesses. And so for me, that's kind of what I've come to notice, is that with Airbnb and assisted living, you're doing a service, right? You're providing a service, and they're similar to both services. They're you're providing housing with both businesses, and so you have to always just make sure with both of them that you keep them clean, that you keep them nice, and you keep all the maintenance up to date. For the most part, all that is, I mean, they're very similar in that aspect. Yeah, one of them with assisted living, you can make a lot more money with assisted living, but you can also make a lot more money with Airbnb, depending on your listing and depending in the area that you're in and how much you scale, etc., what type of properties you get. And I would say that the regulations with Airbnb are a lot more lenient than assisted living. So that's a pro for Airbnb, is the fact that the regulations are a lot more lenient than assisted living, whereas assisted living has a lot more regulations, a lot more paperwork, a lot more things that you have to kind of worry about. And then also the liabilities are a lot higher with assisted living than they are with Airbnb. So that's another pro about running the Airbnb business. You're not really having to deal with a lot of liabilities as you are with assisted living. And then another thing I would say, a pro for Airbnb, is you're not really having to stay in contact with, or like you meet any of the guests face to face. So if you're like more introvert, Airbnb is definitely a lot more easier to handle. And if you have any type of anxiety meeting people and stuff, Airbnb allows you to be pretty hands off and not ever meet the guests. Whereas with the assisted living, you're going to have to talk to all kinds of healthcare professionals. You're going to have to talk to the families. You're going to have to be a lot more face to face with people. And so that's, depending on what type of person you are, that could be something that, would hinder you from having to do assisted living. But there are a lot of skills that you learn from having that personal face to face with people. You learn how to have more confidence in yourself, etc. So, that's a pro, I guess, if with assisted living. That's something that you struggle with, is having to meet face to face and having that confidence of meeting people face to face. And then another thing with the assisted living versus Airbnb is that with Airbnb, you're not having to have as much expenses as you are with assisted living. Assisted living has a lot more higher expenses due to the fact that you have, a lot more employees. You have a lot more people that, or expenses that you have to deal with, insurance, etc. Whereas with Airbnb, yeah, you'll probably have like insurance, but it's not going to be nowhere near as expensive because the coverage that you're going to have to get with Airbnb versus assisted living. So, your expenses overall with the assisted living are going to be a lot higher than they would be with Airbnb. With Airbnb, that's kind of why it's a pro versus assisted living, is because the expenses are a lot less. And I believe with the startup cost for an assisted living is a lot higher than Airbnb. So that's another thing to consider. If you're wanting to choose either assisted living or Airbnb, Airbnb is a lot easier. You could probably get into any type of listing for as little as like $6,000. And then, if you go down the rental arbitrage route, if you decide to buy a property, obviously putting 3 to 5% down, and then furnishing the entire home and everything will probably cost anywhere from, $20,000 to $30,000, give or take. Whereas the assisted living, to get all set up, if you're gonna rent a house and all that, let's say you take both routes. The one thing you have to consider with the assisted living, the reason why your expense startup costs are a lot more is because you're going to have to pay those referral fees if you just do decide to use placement agents. Whereas if you don't use placement agents, you could lose money waiting to get those beds filled, and that could add up pretty quickly. So, the startup costs versus both, Airbnb takes it. It's a lot less to start up an Airbnb than it is to start up an assisted living home. Now, if you guys are thinking of doing either Airbnb or assisted living, they're both great business models and they both generate quite a bit of income. And they're both scalable. They both have a lot of benefits to doing each one. But it all comes down to what it is you guys prefer. If you guys prefer taking care of the elderly and you guys feel like that's a passion of your guys's, definitely go down the assisted living route. If you guys just want to be completely like introvert and hands off for the most part and how to have to deal with a lot and have less startup costs and whatnot, Airbnb will probably be the better route for you guys. But that's something you guys have to kind of evaluate for yourselves if doing Airbnb or assisted living is for you guys. Or you guys can do what I did and start both of them and generate income from both of them and scale both of them if that's something you guys want to do. That's definitely what I'm doing, so it's something you guys may consider. But guys, if you got a ton of insight from this video, make sure to hit that like button. And if you haven't yet, guys, go ahead and smash that subscribe button for me. And if you haven't yet, go join the Facebook group that I've created called Legion Assisted Living Academy, guys. And go watch all these other videos that are up here. They're all very informative, so go watch them. And guys, I will see you guys all in the next video. God bless. Peace.